Hey vinyl community, today I want to do a video and show you how you can protect your most precious asset, your vinyl records. Now if you're like me, you've got hundreds of records and it is impossible to protect each one of them, to keep them safe, to keep them free from harm, out of the way of danger, but we do the best we can. And this video is to try and show you how you can prolong the life, pleasure, and enjoyment of your records. So first thing I want to talk about is the record sleeve itself. How do we protect the very first thing, the first impression we get when we pull a record out of our record shelf? And for a sleeve, the first thing that you should always do is make sure you have a plastic sleeve that protects the record jacket. I see people who own hundreds and hundreds of records and none of them are in a plastic sleeve. And I'm thinking, I don't even have words. I don't understand how somebody doesn't consider the jacket almost as precious as the actual vinyl that's in it. And you can get these sleeves, usually any record store you go in, you can find these plastic sleeves. There tend to be two different kinds. There's this kind where you've got the opening at the top that does not seal, and then you've got this kind which seals, you know. And another discussion with these ones that seal. So they seal, they open like this. There's a little adhesive strip right here that the flap attaches to. And so I've seen people do it different ways. Do you seal them at the top or do you seal them at the side? Now, the problem that I've always seen when I seal them at the side is that as I'm taking the record in and out of my record storage shelf or whatever you happen to use, over time, this starts to get bent up and there's creases, and then pretty soon it looks like absolute shit because it's just worn out, you know, now it's bending, and the more you take it out, because it doesn't always seal perfectly when you stick it back in with the other records. So I always do it at top. I find you don't get the bends that way. You have less risk of having your plastic sleeve look like garbage because it's all pulling away and bent and creased and looks like absolute garbage. So that is what I recommend. Now, which sleeve is better, the one that doesn't seal or the seal? You know, I guess it's a matter of taste. I think if you have it seal over time, you know, you're not going to get air, which is going to age or discolor, potentially discolor the record jacket. However, this is kind of a, you know, I don't know, somewhat of a pain in the ass a little bit because you got to unseal it. And then over time, the adhesive strip, you know, gets less sticky, and then this is all flapping around. So this tends to be a little more expensive. I'm talking pennies. I'm not talking like dollars more, but I am able to find these unsealed plastic sleeves a little easier, and they're much easier to get the record in and out of. So I think it's really just a matter of taste. Second point, and I shouldn't even have to say this, never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, stack your records. I don't care if you're reorganizing, you're re-alphabetizing them, and it's just a temporary situation where you're going to stack your records. Never. That is the biggest cause of ring wear. I've walked into a record store that I go to. It's near my house. I'm in there all the time, and I see them with stacks of records as they're preparing to clean them. They've got them stacked on the side, and I'm like, are you out of your mind? What are you doing? Never, under any circumstance, lay your records and stack them flat. You are inviting ring wear. Bad idea. My next tip is do not pack your records too tightly. Again, you're just inviting ring wear if you are squeezing your albums into too tight of a space. So if you're stacking your records like this, if you have to tug at your record to get it out of it, then you're packing them too tightly together. Yours should very easily be able to slide in and out. If you have to apply any amount of pressure, you're packing them too tightly together, and I would suggest maybe taking a few out so they slide in like real easy. If not, you are at risk of ring wear guaranteed for your records over time. My next tip, and sometimes people don't think about this, but sunlight is the enemy of your record spines. If you are keeping your records in a room that gets a lot of sunlight, and it depends on which time of year, but I find in my particular room where I store my records, in the wintertime is when they are exposed to the most sunlight directly on their spines. And over time, you've seen it if you've gone to record stores. It usually happens, I think, most frequently to CDs because there's a wider spine than you see on your records, but it will happen to your records too. If you have direct sunlight shining on your record spines, over time they're gonna fade, and it's real hard to find the record you're looking for if the spine is faded. So what I usually do is I either, during that time of day, cover it maybe with a sheet. You can buy like plastic, like cardboard or something to put in front of your records if you've got no other way to cover them up. But sunlight, I'm telling you, I've had more spines faded because I just didn't think about it. It wasn't something I thought, well, big deal, the sun's shining on them. The next debate is whether you should keep your record outside the jacket in the plastic sleeve, or do you keep it actually inside the record sleeve itself. So I have seen some people, they just keep the record inside the jacket as usual, but then I've seen some people who put them in the plastic sleeve behind the record jacket. Now, I've heard that you reduce the amount of ring wear if you keep the record behind the sleeve, which, I suppose, but I think you can eliminate that if you just don't pack your records too tightly together. I don't think you're gonna get that ring wear. However, I suppose one of the reasons I don't like to keep it in the sleeve behind, I don't like to keep the record behind the jacket in the plastic sleeve, is because if I pull a record out, I want to, at a quick glance, maybe I want to read the back of the record jacket or see what's behind it. It's a matter of aesthetics for me, so I don't keep my record behind my record sleeve. And I'm not too worried about ring wear. There are people that will tell you, you should never, ever keep the record in the actual record jacket, but I don't know. I don't think it's that big a deal, honestly. Now, let's talk about the record sleeve itself. And there's a big debate. Should you keep it in a paper sleeve, or should you use a MoFi poly sleeve? And what am I talking about, paper sleeve versus MoFi poly? So there are basically two types of record sleeves. Basically, I've seen paper with a MoFi sleeve inside of it, or this is your typical just paper record sleeve. And I'm sure some of you vinyl purists are like, oh my God, you don't have that in a poly sleeve? No, I don't. Like, I've got over 1,000 records, and there's no way that I am going to be able to get a poly sleeve for each and every one of them. Maybe my most valuable records I do, but I'm just not that big of a geek that I got to have a poly sleeve for every single record I own. So what is a poly sleeve? It looks like this, pretty much. Most of the time they're transparent. This is a old Monkeys Rhino record release from the 80s, but it pretty much looks like that. Keeps your record free of dust and whatever harmful effects come from keeping them in a paper sleeve. So yeah, in a perfect world, all my records would be in this kind of sleeve, but it's not a perfect world. I'm not a perfect record collector, so I would say a large majority of my records are in paper sleeve. I know that's blasphemy to some purists out there, but that's just the way it is. So, second is, for your sleeves, if you don't have them in a MoFi sleeve, because if you do have them in this poly MoFi sleeve, you're gonna, slide it into the record, just like that, with the opening at the top. But for a paper sleeve, and it's kind of like the toilet paper roll, under or over. Do I want to put my record sleeve so the record comes out like this so I can get easy access to it? Or do I want to turn it around and stick it in the record jacket with the opening on the top? Zoop. Well, let me tell you, before, to me, it didn't really used to matter, but mostly I would have it so the record could slide easily in and out of the sleeve after I took it out of the plastic sleeve. But something happened to me a couple of weeks ago, and it happened with this album right here, one of my most precious possessions. Love this record, Jeff Buckley's Grace. I took it out of my plastic sleeve and had it just like this. So the opening is right here. Took it out of the sleeve, was not paying attention, and oh no, the record slid out of the sleeve. As soon as I took the record off, it flew out of the sleeve, fell on the floor, bounced around. Now there is a big scratch on my record, and yeah, you can hear it. Pretty deep scratch, not so that it skips, but enough that it's annoying when you play it. So beware. Never, my advice to you is never, under any circumstance, do like this. Do like this. That way, not gonna happen. You live, you learn. Now I gotta replace my Jeff Buckley Grace album. The record itself, how do we protect that precious piece of wax? Well, number one, keep it a Mo-Fi poly sleeve would be the number one way. And you might have some sealed records that you've never opened before, and there's that debate. Keep them sealed or open them up. I've seen plenty of sealed records that over time get warped to hell, so my advice to you is you may think keeping them sealed is going to fetch you all kinds of money, or it's going to make that record way more valuable 20 years down the road. Well, your record's not going to be valuable if it warps. And if you keep your record sealed, you run into the risk of warping that record, because over time, it's going to compress that record. The record is going to bend with the cardboard of the record sleeve over time. It's going to be packed in that tight space, and I really think you run the risk of that record being warped. Anything else you collect, baseball cards, comic books, whatever your fetish is, you want to keep that baby sealed. But records, I'm not so sure you want to. I would think twice about that. I used to have a bunch of sealed records, but not anymore. Not after I saw the effects over time and what they do to your record. My last piece of advice, buy some cleaner. This is not expensive. Like on Amazon, this is probably gonna run you about 10 bucks, but clean your records. If you bring them home from the record store and they got dust on them, don't play it that way. You're not only gonna mess up your needle, but it's just not good for the record. You can buy a nice brush, some cleaning solution, whatever it is that you use. This is what I use. I mean, it's not expensive stuff. It's a very cool brush. You can get them packaged together. You can find them even at your record store, but clean your goddamn records. Sorry, clean your records. Just do yourself a favor. It's like brushing your teeth. You wouldn't walk around with crap all in your teeth. I hope you wouldn't anyway. So that is my advice to you, fellow record collector. As always, if you've enjoyed this video, if you found it helpful, if it has changed your life, please subscribe, give me a like, and as always, take care and protect your records.